public broadcasting is still free to listen to. You don't have to have a subscription to anything. And so you do get people of all economic levels. It's real people.
Bring me the bundle. Like, I just want to turn on my TV and find something to watch.
The easiest thing to do when you get in your car and drive is just turn on the radio. You're not sitting there like loading up your iPhone so you can get your podcast on. It does take actual work by all of us to make sure that it continues to survive as a free country.
Thank you for doing what you do. You do make a difference. Hi, I'm Jim Fielding. Welcome to Ask for an Answer. All right, well, welcome everybody. I'm so excited for this episode of Ask for an Answer. I'm excited because my guest, I met through a guest from my first season of the podcast, through Brian Sims is how we met each other. And I'm thrilled to welcome Jeremy Hobson to this episode of Ask for an Answer. We're recording in a beautiful day in LA, sunny, beautiful LA today. And I'm so thrilled you could come in. And many people know you, but I want you to tell your story and introduce yourself. But thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Well, people probably know me from public radio. I hosted the show Here and Now for 7.5 years. I hosted Marketplace Morning Report before that for a couple of years. I was a reporter for many years for Marketplace. Now, for the last few years, I have been executive producing and hosting a show that I created called The Middle, which is a live national call-in talk show, the only national call-in show left on public radio. And started it a couple years ago, and we're now airing on more than 460 stations around the country. I grew up in Champaign-Urbana, Illinois. I'm the child of 2 professors. I'm one of 7 children. What else do you want to know?
Wait, what number are you in 7? Because I'm into birth order.
I'm number 2.
And older brother or sister?
Older brother, yeah.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
And what's the age?
But I was like, people thought that I was an only child throughout my whole childhood because that's the way that I behaved. But
Okay, what's the age span in the 7?
The oldest is now 45 and the youngest is 29. But the first 6 were all like a year and a half apart. And then the youngest is a bonus.
And your mom was working the whole time she was having these children.
Yeah, she was working at least part-time the whole time. My parents are both classical pianists and taught at the University of Illinois. My dad was, full-time and concert pianist and all of that. My mom didn't work as much, but she was also raising, all of us.
I love that. And we have those Midwestern roots because I grew up in Ohio. You grew up in Illinois. Yep. I mean, so much of why. And my listeners know, I'm a fanboy. Like, I'm having a fanboy moment because I remember Marketplace Morning Report, and I, of course, remember Here and Now, and I listen to The Middle now. And it's funny, when you and I were meeting to prepare for this, I didn't realize it was only still call-in. Like, I knew it was a call-in, but it didn't really register until you told me that, which I think is interesting.
It's interesting because there used to be a lot of live call-in shows on public radio. There was Talk of the Nation for many years. There, even like the Diane Rehm show existed. It was a call-in show. And I think people really liked that. NPR made a decision many years ago that they didn't want to do it anymore. But when we started this, like, people love it, and they love, especially in a moment when we have got such echo chambers in our media and only a select few people in New York and Washington get to comment on the news, to have a space where anyone is welcome to be a part of it. And look, I have call screeners. We're not just letting crazy people on.
I was going to ask that. Yeah.
Yeah, but still, it's just been really nice to be able to talk to ordinary people of all walks of life. When you have a conversation about any issue in the news and you hear from people who have a direct stake in it and people who are sort of tangentially feeling it, and you're like, oh, I hadn't even thought about how that would impact a veteran or a Chinese American or whatever. It's a very interesting thing.
Well, what I like about what you do too is it's not like, again, the echo chamber, it's not like your screeners are only putting fans through. Like, you have some real conversations and civil discussions, which I think are really, really important.
Yeah, I don't want to only be in a place where I hear from people that agree with me about something. Like, I think one of the things that, and maybe this is, Midwest upbringing and this is the way that we do things, but like, I treat people at the start with respect. I think that, okay, I'm open to what you have to say and I want to hear it and I want to elevate it. And I want to also challenge my listeners. I don't want them to only hear from people that they agree with already.
Well, and you're entitled. Yeah, no, I think it is the way we were raised. I mean, to me, that's the golden rule, right? It's like, treat people the way that you want to be treated. I mean, we were definitely raised that way. And I think it's huge. Okay, so let's go back. I love the comment because I want to go back. 1 of 7 children, but people thought you were an only child.
Yeah.
I mean, tell me that story because I think that's interesting.
Yeah. So when I was probably like 6 or 7 years old, we had this house on the campus of the University of Illinois with like a bunch of bedrooms.
Yeah.
And the girls had like a room that they shared, and the boys at the time, I guess there were three of us, maybe there was about to be 4. And we had a room that we shared, but there was this one room in our house that was like tiny, like literally the size of a twin bed and a dresser. That's what you could fit in that room. And I'm like, I want that one. I want to be in that room. So that was from that point on, I had my own room for the rest of my time in that house. Also, like there was a point when I was like maybe 11 or 12 that I was like, I really want to go to camp. I want to get out of here in the summer. Like I need to get out of this town. And so I like while my mom was out at the grocery store, I found the camp that she went to as a kid in upstate New York. And faxed them and said that I was her and that my son wanted to go to the camp. And by the time she got home, like all she needed to do was like provide a check or a credit card and pay for it. So yeah,
and you went away for how long? Like how long was
like
that
a couple
camp?
of weeks or 3 weeks. And maybe like, I mean, I wasn't out at the time, but I'm like the gay kid growing up in Central Illinois. I want to like go out and do my own thing.
I was going to ask, I mean, did you know at that age that you were quote different or?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I didn't come out until I was like 20 in college. But I think, by the time I was, going through puberty, I think it was pretty clear to me.
Me too. Yeah.
I mean, maybe I thought I was bi, as one does.
Forever,
in the beginning.
I was bi.
Right, exactly.
I was bi for a long time.
Yeah, right.
It was more socially acceptable, I think.
Totally.
And more acceptable to myself.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
I was bi for sure.
Yeah. But I'll just tell you one other thing about my only childhood. So we would drive east in our minivan to visit family in New Jersey and around Philadelphia in the summer, like in August for a couple of weeks. And we had a couple of family friends who lived in Illinois and they would go to Martha's Vineyard for a month or whatever in the summer. And one time we went to visit them and I just like loved it. I was like, oh, this is my scene. And so
my people,
this is what I want. And so I started to go, Mom and Dad, the car only fits 7 and maybe I should just fly out like a week early and I'll go to the vineyard and then I will come down and meet you guys. And so I'm like literally multiple times was on a series of buses from like Woods Hole, Massachusetts down to Atlantic City, New Jersey.
What did your sibling, did they just roll their eyes at you?
Whatever some of them get their way now way more than I do in that family. So
I was thinking, what's the adult relationship like now? Like, are you still...
Yeah, like, I mean,
You're probably the cool uncle, though, I would think, right?
I mean, yeah, I think I only have 2 right now blood nieces and nephews. My husband and I have many nieces and nephews, but they're mostly in his family.
Okay.
I now have 2 like little babies that are adorable, and I'm sure that I will be the cool uncle, and hopefully I will win like the best uncle pageant when they're older.
By the way, Gunkle, which is what my nieces call me, is the best job on earth.
Yeah.
Like, and I would have I would go to their school things. They were in Arizona, but I tried many times to be a good uncle and like to give my sister and her husband like a weekend off. That only really worked once because I was so terrorized by the end of the weekend. Like I was not meant to have children. But at the school events, like I had to take them to a school carnival and everybody would be like, will you adopt my children or would you adopt my children? Because Gunkle is the coolest.
Right.
And you just do things with them and indulge them and give them stupid gifts and take them stupid places, and then you give them back to their parents. Yeah. It's awesome.
No, I think that'll be great when they get to the age when that makes sense to do. I would love to do that. But, my older brother is a professor at Mississippi State University, and I was just on a cross-country drive, and I went and visited him in Starkville, Mississippi, which I think was like great. I don't think many people have visited him since he's been in Starkville, and it was nice. It was fun for us to hang out.
What's he a professor of?
Middle East, North African sort of history of the war on terrorism. He speaks fluent Arabic. He was a tennis player my whole childhood. That's amazing. Really he was on the NCAA championship winning team at the University of Illinois, then was like just slightly not good enough to go pro and make a living out of it, and then had to completely change his route and went and got his PhD, learned Arabic, and is a great professor in that area now.
Amazing. Were you on the Illinois campus? Was your family kind of famous because you had two professors? Yeah. Was that good or bad?
No, it was good. It's funny. This has now been brought up several times to me, but I was always Ian Hobson's son. Yeah. And now sometimes he's Jeremy Hobson's father, which is interesting, especially because, in the public radio world, a lot of stations have a classical music station too. And so they would know him from that. And so, there are people that are like, oh, you're Ian Hobson's son. Yeah.
That's amazing.
But we were a terrible group of children at the concerts. We would go to the concerts at the Cranert Center in Champaign-Urbana. And I remember one time we were sitting there in the middle of a classical music concert with lots of people in the audience. And, the hall is you're sitting back up and then it goes way down to the stage. And I had a box of everlasting gobstoppers and they fell out and rolled down in the middle of, I was like, uh-oh, not going to be good.
I love that. It's so funny because I love college towns, and I always wondered what it would be like to grow up in one. Yeah, but you literally grew up on campus.
Yes, and it was great to grow up in one because as a kid, you're in a place that's built for people that don't have cars. And so you don't really have to rely on your parents to drive you places.
That's fascinating.
Yeah,
I never even thought about that.
Yeah, we lived across the street from a sorority. We would go play baseball in their yard. It was cool to grow up on a college campus.
Okay, and I want to get to today, but I'm so fascinated by this story. The faxing and going to camp thing, you just came up with that one day? You were how old? 11? 12?
I was 11 or 12, yeah.
And you were like, I should go to camp.
Yeah, look, my parents are both immigrants. And so and they would play music festivals in the summer. So when I was a kid, until we sort of reached the age where it was too expensive and difficult to fly us all with them, we would go to Italy and France and England, and they would play these music festivals in the summer. And we would usually bring a cousin, an older cousin with us who would be our babysitter while we were there.
Right.
So I had been to these places when I was a kid. And once we stopped doing that, when I was probably 10 years old, I was like, but I don't want to be in Champaign-Urbana in the summer. There's nobody here. The university, all the students are gone.
Yeah,
it's lost its
a
energy.
Resort town. Yeah,
exactly. And so I was like, I got to get out of here. I want to go to the beach. I want to go to go to the East Coast.
I wish I knew 10-year-old Jeremy, figuring this out. I think that's fun.
Well, by the way,
were you the hardest child? Would your parents, if I asked your parents?
No, definitely not.
Easy.
No, I didn't I didn't have huge parties and cause damage to the house.
Were you a pleaser?
Probably. I think, maybe this is an over characterization of a group of people, but I feel like LGBTQ people are pleasers. We want to be on the A list of
because
everything.
We feel different.
Right.
And in my case, I don't know in your case, but in my case, I felt not only different, I felt like I was not right. I'd been taught that we were kind of broken and so I overcompensated for sure. I had to have good grades. I just did not want to I wasn't going to ruffle any feathers because I wanted to have good grades. And for me, I played sports, but I wasn't a good enough sport athlete. I knew my way out of Toledo, Ohio was academic scholarships.
Right.
I figured that out early. So I was in a big public high school. We graduated with 800 kids. I knew I had to have a top ranking. I knew I had to have a good SAT score. I knew all that stuff from 13 or 14. I knew I needed activities even back then, to get into school because I wanted to go away to school. I did not want to go to school. There was a university in Toledo, University of Toledo. I didn't want to go there.
I started at the University of Illinois because that was the place that we could go for half of in-state tuition, so almost nothing.
Free, almost,
and eventually, in my sophomore year, transferred to Boston University. But the reason that I was able to do that was because my parents divorced. My mom married a professor at BU, which meant that I could go for 10% tuition to BU. And so then it was like, okay, now it's going to only cost $3,000 a year for me to go there. But I was I was ready to get out of Champaign-Urbana. I love it. I love visiting. I love that I grew up there. But at that point in my life, I was like,
Is there still a nucleus there? Or
my dad is still there. Wow. Yeah, my dad is still
teaching?
He's still teaching a little bit. He's still got his orchestra that he started 40 years ago that he conducts there. And he loves it there. You know, he's English, but he grew up in the Midlands in England, which are actually very similar to the Midwest of the United States. And I think there's something that he really likes about that kind of being away. He's in cities all the time, but he likes to be in his house and can walk to the campus and have his friends there and just
did
have
any
it simpler.
Siblings stay there, or are they all
they some of them did it for periods of time, but none of the kids are there anymore.
So fascinating.
Yeah,
but a great way to grow up.
Yeah,
a really great way to grow up. Okay, so tell us about getting to NPR, like the early days of like Marketplace and then How Here and Now and all that.
Well, so when I was growing up, when I was like 8 years old or 9 years old, this woman came into our class and asked us to write radio plays for this show called Treehouse Radio that existed on the local public radio station. It was a show for kids by kids, and they would run it like 5 p.m. on Sundays. And I did a radio play with my friend Chris. Actually, let me just go back slightly because when I was like 6, 7 years old, I would call into the oldies station, Oldies 92, which I listened to all the time. And I would request all the songs on like the Saturday night request night. I would win pizzas delivered to our house at 10 o'clock at night. Like, the call in, remember the call in? Call in number 10 gets a pizza. I got those a lot.
Oh my God.
So I was obsessed with radio. I loved the medium. I loved the connection I had to the person on the other side. I felt like there was something, it's like something bigger than my small town in Champaign-Urbana. Even though it was just a representation of the place that I lived, but it was still like, it just felt like that I was part of something that was going on at 10 p.m. or at 11 p.m.
So funny.
So I did this radio play with my friend Chris, and it got selected. We did it. And then they started having us fill in hosting the show Treehouse Radio. And then when I got into my high school, there was a class project that was oral history projects. And we would go, for the first one, we interviewed Holocaust survivors living in Champaign-Urbana and put together like an 8-minute radio piece, which then won an Associated Press Award when I was like 12 years old.
God,
and so then I started producing the high school documentary every year as an independent study. And by the time I had reached, getting ready to go to college, and I was young, I graduated when I was 16 from high school, and I wanted to take a year off so I could, get myself back to like normal age for classes. And I was able to, through a connection in Champaign-Urbana, get in touch with a producer at NPR, and then went to be an intern at All Things Considered at age 17 for a year. I lived in Washington, D.C. that year. So then when I finished that, and within 6 weeks of being there, got a story that I had done on the radio on All Things Considered. And it was
at 17.
Yeah, they had just announced that you couldn't have a cell phone at the gas pump because it would cause an explosion. And I went through like calling people to find out where this warning came from, and found that it came from like a debunked story in China that was not actually true. It never happened. And I put together this radio story that then aired on NPR. So then at the end of that
Smelling
year,
out fake news.
I guess so,
17.
Right? 17.
Wow. I mean, I love this.
So at the end of that year, I was like, actually, it comes back to something I've already told you about my love of Massachusetts coastline.
Yeah.
They said, Jeremy, you've been an intern at All Things Considered. Where would you like to go this summer? You could really go anywhere. There's a public radio station. They're probably going to take you as an intern. And I was like, well, do they have one on Martha's Vineyard? And they're like, well, actually, they're just starting one now on Martha's Vineyard. Do you want? And it turned out that the guy that started that station is like one of the most incredible independent producers in public media, Jay Allison, who started the Moth Radio Hour, did a series called Lost and Found Sound that won Peabody Awards. Like, he was an amazing person to work with. So I went for 2 summers there after that internship.
Did you major in journalism?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, you've had this calling for a long time.
Yes. I mean, people always say that to me.
Did you consider anything else?
Yeah. Yes, I wanted to be David Letterman when I was a kid.
Okay.
And I was an actor throughout all of high school. I was Nathan Detroit in Guys and Dolls. I did a bunch of acting. But I think I got to a point at the end of high school when I was sort of making this choice about what to do next, where I was like, I don't want to be auditioning for the rest of my life. I don't like the idea of having to prove myself constantly. I want a more steady role.
Midwestern. There was the little Midwestern.
You think that's what it is? Pragmatism.
Yeah, realism. Yeah. I mean, no, I mean, I think the acting bug is real, but I mean, that's your summation of it is very real.
But I still get to put on a show now. It's just a different kind of a show.
You're a storyteller. I mean, that to me, and having listened to all these years and now getting to meet you in person, I mean, there's so much story there. Like, the fact that it started at such a young age makes complete sense to me. And I love storytelling. Like, and I think that's how I ended up working at Disney and DreamWorks and places, just because I love storytelling.
Right.
I love reading. I love writing. I love listening. I love live theater. I love, like, you know, I love all kinds of theater, Broadway, local theater, regional theater, West End, London. I mean, it's just a huge part of my life.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I'm older than you are. I was acting in elementary school and loving it, and was like in the school choir and stuff, and then started getting called all the bad names and let the bullies bully it out of me, where I dropped out, even though I loved it. Like, I was in Oliver, I was in all these shows, like when I was 9, 10, 11, but 12 or 13, it was getting pretty horrible, the bullying, you know, and I wasn't strong enough to fight against it. So I just quit. Like, and I remember my choir teacher.
I did that with basketball in high school. That lasted about 3 weeks. And I was like, this is not for me.
The choir teacher, the theater people were like so freaked out that I was quitting because I was into it. Like, I was getting good roles, but I wasn't strong enough. I couldn't handle it. And it's so funny because my parents, we didn't have the vocabulary because my parents never asked me, like, why something I love so much, I quit rather abruptly. Like, and I think because they didn't want to have the conversation, I think we all knew what the reason was, but we just didn't want to have it. But I think that's why I now am such a supporter and fan of live theater and go out of my way wherever I live to subscribe to season tickets. And like, when, you know, we go to New York, we go to London, like, I'm always seeing shows because I think it's such an incredible art form. But I also think it's why NPR has been such a huge part of my life, because I love the shows like All Things Considered and Here Now, like that are telling me stories, and like the stories that I would have never heard, like the gas pump story that you did all those years ago. Like, you're not going to hear that in normal daily life.
Totally. I mean, people have asked me over the years, like, who's the most interesting interview you've ever done? And like, if I actually sat down and looked at all of the thousands of people, I would probably come up with some other ideas. But I will tell you, like, one that stands out to me just because it was so interesting and something you'd never hear anywhere other than public radio was I did an interview with the winner of the Pritzker Prize for Architecture, who was a 92-year-old architect in India named Balkrishna Doshi, who basically, among others, he like learned from Gaudi. Like, he amazing people that taught him his craft, but he basically designed like housing projects for people in India that were designed. He was like, you want to have it, you need to have there to be shade, but you also want to have it like open air so that it's comfortable. He's like, it's, you know, architecture is all about like creating a space that's comfortable for people. And I was like, that's so interesting.
And what phase was that? Was that
was at Here and Now.
Here and Now. I was going to say, yeah, God, It's amazing. Did you, when you were on Here and Now, were you finding your own stories, or did you had a staff, right?
Yeah, Here and Now's got a big staff.
Yeah.
I mean, when I came in, it was more of when I came in, it was more of a regional New England show.
Yes.
But when I came in, NPR jumped in as a partner with WBUR in Boston and turned it in from a 1 hour to a 2 hour show, from one host to two, and then expanded the staff greatly. So there were, at least 15 producers on Here and Now. So people would come up with all kinds of ideas.
Yeah.
But, as one of the hosts, like, if I came up with something that I wanted to do, it would usually happen.
Mm-hmm. And I know you well enough that you were constantly looking for stories.
Oh, yeah. Yes. And that was another thing, is a lot of public radio hosts are like bookworms. Like they get their ideas out of the New Yorker or the New York Times or a book that they read or whatever. I'm a social person. I do a lot of reading, but also, like, my husband and I are constantly having dinner parties with people. And a lot of my best ideas would come from those. It's like, I'm having a dinner with somebody who's a lawyer, or somebody who works in Hollywood, or somebody who does this or that. And some idea, some spark comes up, and I'm like, that is a great idea. We should do a story.
No,
I
can see your antenna always being up.
Yeah.
Like, for sure. For sure. It's so funny you mentioned dinner party, because one of the questions I had for later, but I think now's the right time to ask. So if I told you could have your ideal dinner party, but you got to invite 5 guests besides your husband, so there's 7 of you, like, what does that dinner party look like? Living or dead? Like, I'm just curious, like, because you have done so many interviews, but I'm just curious, like, who would be at that dinner party? I know 5 is an odd number, but I'm just
that's a hard question.
I know, I should have prepped you for that. I didn't prep him, audience.
Right.
So I'm zinging him.
First of all, I've never interviewed a president of the United States. I've interviewed people running for president, but I've never interviewed a president of the United States. I think it would be interesting to talk to somebody who's held that role. So that would be somebody that could be cool to have at a dinner party. I think, like, philosophers are really interesting people, and futurists. But I don't, I'm like, I grew up in a house with professor parents that were friends with the other professors.
Yes.
And they would have dinner parties constantly.
Yes.
And so, and I, as the only child of the 7-child family, would come and sit at the dinner.
Of course.
And want to be around all of this. So, like, I mean, I do love academics. I think that they're very interesting people.
I know.
But I love talking to business people. We have a good friend who owns some restaurants, and I remember over the summer, I probably hadn't seen him very much, but I saw him for the first time in a while. And I was like, hey, by the way, how are your restaurants doing right now? He's like, well, which ones? I'm like, well, like the steakhouses and this and that. He's like, well, the steakhouses follow the market, and people are coming in. They're coming in less, but they're ordering the same amount. And I'm like, oh, that's an interesting detail. I am going to take that and use that somehow.
That's your marketplace report.
Right, exactly.
That's
marketplace. Right.
That is. Are you an old soul? I think you're an old soul.
Yes, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm an old soul. Like. Yeah, I know I've had many past lives. Like, I definitely know, but I can tell you're an old soul.
Some of my best friends as a child were like 80 years old.
Yeah,
seriously.
I mean, the fact that you would go to, like, the dinner parties of the professors, I'm like, I would have loved that, right?
Yeah.
Like, if I had that option. And it's funny because my family, I'm from a family of storytellers, and I think my love of reading and my love of stories was because our family dinners and, like, our multi-generational family dinners at my grandparents' house or at, our house, you were expected to talk about what you were reading. Like, and it could be Hardy Boys or the Nancy Drew Mysteries or whatever. Like, but like they would go around the table and my family, my father and my grandfather were firemen, so we're more blue collar, but they loved reading. And I remember as a kid, like, and there's pictures of me with books in my crib. Like, reading was, like, so important in my family. And I loved it. And it's funny, like, of all the cousins, and, I have one younger sister, I was the one who was sitting at the table talking about what everybody was reading, where the other cousins couldn't wait to get away. Like, they were basically like, they wanted to go play or just be anywhere else, be in the basement away from, I wanted to sit at the table and hear what people were reading.
Yeah.
Totally. And even my friends in high school were like the older kid. Like when I was a freshman, I had a lot of friends that were juniors and seniors. I just always was, I'm an old soul. Like
totally. I mean, I just am thinking that like I have spoken at a couple of memorial services.
Yeah.
I've spoken at memorial services for people who died in their 80s.
Yeah.
That like out of the 3 or 4 people,
they chose you.
They wanted me to be there, or their family members did. And like it meant a lot to me to be selected to do that. But it also shows that like I did have a strong bond with them.
Yeah, I can totally see it. Bond and respect. I think that's what I can tell. And even from listening to you all these years and listening to your interview, like you have such a, you do so much research and you have respect and reverence for who you're talking to. Like it comes across like you're really in the moment. I think that's why your listeners like listening to you, because you're like, you're like, oh wow, he's loving this. Like he's really loving it.
I know it's funny. People are like, how do you deal with like talking to people who like are calling in with these different political views? And I'm like, I like asking people what they think. Right.
So talk to me about the middle and what you're liking and learning and all that stuff, because this has been a fascinating journey too.
Yeah. So I started it about I piloted it several years ago, 3 years ago, a little more than 3 years ago. And I was listening to an All Things Considered episode while I was driving. And I heard it was like an excellent reporter was in Ukraine. This was the start of the Ukraine war. And they have him in Ukraine and he's interviewing a reporter in Washington. And it's clearly scripted. And I was like, what is this? Guys, what are you doing? You send your like top person over there. He's in a war zone and you want him to read a script with a reporter? This sounds terrible. And I was like, and you know, I'd been doing public radio for like 20 years at that point. And I immediately fired off an email to like one of the top station managers in the country at a big market. And I was like, I want to do a show. I want to pitch a show that we're going to do together that's called Live and Unscripted with Jeremy Hobson. That's going to be in the evening, and it is going to be just a live hour that's not going to sound scripted like this, because this is just driving me nuts.
Right.
And they were like, well, that's an interesting idea, but we couldn't do it ourselves. Maybe if you got a few different stations together, we could do it. And I reached out to a friend in Chicago, and he goes, Jeremy, you're from the Midwest. Why are you pitching this show to these coastal stations? Why don't you do a show that emanates from the middle of the country? And I was like, oh, what if we called it The Middle? And then I start sort of spinning there, and I'm like, and you know, I took a lot of the pieces of it from the show that I wanted to create anyway. It's like, I used to love watching Larry King Live back in the day on CNN. I like watching Bill Maher's show. So I like late night talk show. I told you I wanted to be David Letterman.
Yeah.
So it's like, how can I pull these pieces together? And what we ended up with was we piloted 4 episodes over 4 weeks around the midterm elections in 2022 that I hosted from 4 different cities in the country: Phoenix, Champaign-Urbana, Kansas City, and Fort Myers, Florida. And so I went around and we did this show for 4 weeks to prove the concept, and got over 500 public radio stations to take it for that pilot episodes.
Wow.
And it was me, live calls, 2 panel guests, and a DJ sidekick, like a Paul Schaefer or Questlove. And it went well. But then we had this proof of concept, and it was like, how do we find somebody who's going to pay for this?
Yeah.
And then it was just like meetings and pitching it to different people, and like, how can we do this? And eventually got through to somebody at iHeartMedia who was like, we really like this idea. We'll give you some money to start it. And we know it has to be live on the radio in order for it to work as a podcast, because you have to get live calls.
Right.
And so we will allow you to do it first on public radio, and then the podcast will be on iHeart. And so then we got got rolling. And then the show started weekly about 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, by the time this actually airs, September of 2023. And we are now on over 460 stations around the country, most of the top markets: Sirius XM, the NPR channel, the podcast, and YouTube. So from that perspective, it's going great. But, I also am like the head of finance, the head of HR, the head of technology, all the stuff that has to be done. And I've had to learn a ton about how to run a small business, basically, to do that. And it's a lot of work. And I'm hoping at some point, like, it gets a little bit easier from that I can spend more time on the show part of it and less time on the running the business part of it, if that's ever going to be possible in this media environment we live in.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're going to just put it out there. It's going to be possible.
Yeah.
I'm going to think about it. I'm going to think about how I can help, how we all can help. Cause I get it. I like, you really you want to be the creative, like you want to be the storyteller, you want to be but behind the scenes, because it's not an easy market. I mean,
no, it's not an easy media landscape right now at all.
No, it's not.
And frankly, like, what I have learned is there's no way that this show could have been created by a major media organization, because we were able to take risks with it. We were able to do things that never would have happened.
The live call-in feature, for example.
The live call-in part of it, and also, like, we are using this. We have a great partner in Illinois Public Media. The show runs through in my hometown in Champaign-Urbana, Illinois Public Media, to get up to the satellite for distribution every week. And they bought this phone system right when we started that they're using for their own talk show, but they're also, like, it works for us, which allows me to be anywhere, my 2 call screeners to be anywhere in the country, to answer the phones, to put them into the system. I can put them on the air and take them off the air from my laptop. And it basically makes it possible for us to do this show, for me to hire a team that's almost entirely part-time anywhere they live. So my senior producer's in San Diego. My call screeners are in Baltimore and Kansas City. My, business consultant is in St. Louis. My digital producer is a senior at Northwestern University in Chicago. So it's like, that's something that we could never do in a big media company. There'd be all kinds of rules and it just wouldn't be possible.
No, you'd still be having meetings about it in a big media company. No, you would still, you'd still be having like meetings and you'd have many people telling you it's not possible, and they'd be nickel and diming you to death. And then they'd have some other priority that they're like, we really need to get this person on the show, or blah, blah, blah. And it's we have this movie coming out, or we have this.
I can be audience first almost all the time in this situation. Be like, what is best for my audience? How can I deliver the best show possible for my audience and not think about these other things that are going to get in the way?
Yeah. I mean, you're totally audience listener focused, which I think is an amazing filter. But I get it. Now you have to figure out how to scale it so that you can get more help.
Right.
I mean, it's such a conundrum. But I mean, oh my God, I'm pulling for you.
Thank you.
So so let's talk about the listeners. Let's talk about the middle, because we both are from the middle, right? But when you and I talked, when I first met you, like, 2025 has been a hard year. I mean, I think on many people, not just on our LGBTQ community. I think it's been a really, really hard year. We're recording this in December. I know people won't be listening to it till 2026, but like, what are you hearing from people when they're calling in? What are the big insights or learnings that you're hearing?
Look, I think that this goes back many years beyond the middle in my career. The economy is the most important thing for most people. Like, and there are people that you would never think would vote, let's say, for Donald Trump, but who had such a bad experience economically during, let's say, the Obama administration or the Biden administration, that they're like, you know what? I just want something else besides this. That's what matters to me. And if all of a sudden their economic situation gets better, they're probably gonna be like, okay, I'm good with this right now. So what I hear right now is a lot of economic anxiety. I think people are worried about artificial intelligence and what that's doing to jobs for themselves, for their kids, for their grandkids. Obviously the tariffs, we did a show right at the beginning after the tariffs were announced, asking people how the tariffs were affecting them. And I'm like, you know what? There's no way people are going to even be feeling anything yet from this. Like, it's not going to happen.
They're not really feeling it yet.
The whole show was basically small business owners from around the country being like, we are screwed. I order bicycles to sell in my bike shop outside of Chicago, and we are paying so much more. We're not even going to be able to sell certain aged kids bicycles. I had a hairstylist call in from Dallas. He's like, where do you think we buy our shears from? They come from China. This is going to like put us out of business. We are independent contractors. We can't afford this. So I think the thing that we're hearing because of the platform that we have in the calls is actual economic anxiety. I think a lot of journalists, unfortunately, think that if you poll Twitter or X, that's a good way to get a sense of anything. It's not. There's an algorithm involved that is highlighting certain things and taking other things away.
For sure.
I've said many times on our show, like there's no algorithm involved in who gets on our show. It's just, it's real people.
Yeah.
And it gives us, I think, a better sense of like what's actually happening. Because let's also say public broadcasting is still free to listen to. You don't have to have a subscription to anything. And so you do get people of all economic levels that are listening to that programming.
Not only is it free, but I've really been thinking lately, it's easy. It's simple. Like I can turn on the radio at home or in my car and it's there. Because I was thinking about this as a person who was in big media, and I'm sure I'm going to get filleted for this, but I was literally turning on our TV the other day. And it's so hard to find stuff to watch now because you've got to scan through the apps. First off, you've got to like figure out what platform is that show on.
Right.
Like, my friend told me to watch X show. Is it Netflix? Is it HBO? Is it Hulu? Right. And you're paying all these subscription fees.
Right.
And then you're like, I love our Samsung TV, but I'm scrolling along the bottom and then the battery's weak in the remote. Like, it's not a great customer experience.
No.
It's not. It
was like, easier when there were 29 channels.
That's what I was like. I was like, literally like, I want to be in the old days where like there was 29 channels and there was a schedule. And even the older days, I'm older than you are, where my dad would make me get up to change the channel on the TV.
Right.
Like, no, I want to watch now that. It's on CBS.
Right.
And I was like, it was just easier. And now I'm like, and I was literally sitting there on the couch, scrolling, looking for the show. And I was like, this is harder. Like, I don't think this was the vision. Like, I remember when we were talking about the evils of cable and the bundling. Remember the bundling? And I'm paying for all these channels I don't want and everything else. And I'm like, bring me the bundle. Like, I want to basically, and maybe I'm just getting old, but I basically want to turn on my TV and find something to watch. Like, and I don't want to have to think, because I'm literally on my phone Googling,
what's this on?
What platform is this show on?
Totally.
And then I'm like, do I have that platform? Right. Then I have to think about
and I think like you know, a lot of our stations that we're on, that the middle is on, are in across the middle of the country, in the small towns in Minnesota and Tennessee and whatever. And I think in those places, unlike New York or Washington or Boston or San Francisco, people still get in their car and drive 30 minutes, 45 minutes to get to work, to drop their kids off at school or whatever it is. And the easiest thing to do when you get in your car and drive is just turn on the radio. You're not sitting there like loading up your iPhone so you can get your podcast on. It's like, that's not what most people are thinking about when they get in the car.
No, and it's funny. I'm such an NPR person that like when I travel, I'm using my phone to Google what's the NPR station where I am, right? Yeah. Because I kind of know where it is on the dial because they're kind of all on the same place.
They're usually in the low end.
Yeah, they're usually in the 90s, like the 80s and the 90s, right? But I'm that's what I do. And if I'm driving cross country, that's what I'm doing too, because I'm like, okay, wait a minute, I got to switch now. I got to go to the Texas one or I got to go to the Oklahoma one. But
there used to be a thing called a whimper map, a where is my public radio map that they would give out like for pledge drives. Yeah.
Oh.
It's a whimper map. Yeah.
Oh, now I'm WABE Atlanta. Like I'm very proud of that.
Well, by the way, just apropos of nothing. When I was a producer at All Things Considered, before, after college, I was there for a couple of years, and I would sometimes have to do the rollover time, which would be, so the show would go live from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern, and then it would roll over from 6 to 8 Eastern and 8 to 10 Eastern. That was the time that All Things Considered was on. And if something big broke, then you'd get a host on and have them redo a segment for the later feed for California, basically.
Right.
And what I wanted to do, the idea that I came up with was like, we need to show people how important it is that we're doing these rollover feeds. We should have a map in this office of the country with little lights of every single station and when they're airing the show, so that you look at it when you walk out the door at 6 p.m. and go, oh my gosh, we are on all over this huge swath of the United States right now. Just to remind people like, hey, I know that everybody in Washington is already done with All Things Considered, but it actually is still bringing people along in these other parts of the country.
That's fascinating. Yeah, I think it's so fascinating. Yeah, I mean, I can think of like all the different places I lived, like something I would do. Like I would find, okay, what's my local station?
Right.
What's my local? I mean, I was in Indiana for a while, so it was WFYI. Like I just remember, I remember most of the numbers I remember too, but I remember the call letters.
Interestingly, WNPR is in Connecticut.
Oh.
And KNPR is in Las Vegas.
That's interesting.
It is. I mean, they just got them late, I guess.
I'm like, wow, that's fascinating.
Right.
All right, so I told you we have to talk a little bit about the current political situation because you're so knowledgeable about it. I told you that when I met you, like I have to take it in dose. Like I'm a political science major. And I love philosophy. Like there's part of me that's like a student of everything going on, but I'm even having to take it in small doses right now because it's so overwhelming. So, I mean, you're in the heat of it because this is, your the weekly show and stuff. Like, I mean, I know we talked about the economy, but like, what's your summary of like where we are as a country and what we're facing?
I think we are a very divided country. But I also think that the sort of Trump phenomenon has only existed since 2015, basically. And, there are pieces of like the Tea Party movement that also sort of became MAGA. There's sort of the hard right, but he's sort of added in this populist part too that appealed to more people. I think that one thing that is overarching here is social media has destroyed our attention spans. And I think it's going to be very hard for a president to serve more than one term now because people get so angry with them by the end of the term and they forget what happened before. And like, look at what we just did. There are people that voted for Obama, then Trump, then Biden, and then Trump again.
I know.
Like, that doesn't make any sense.
I know.
Like, which they're so different from each other.
Right.
Now, also gets to the idea of the middle. It's like, why do our parties have to be so ideologically opposite?
Yes.
Why can't we have somebody that's like, I have a little bit of this and a little bit of that? One of the first shows we ever did was what's an area where you disagree with the political party that you associate with? Which was interesting because it made people actually go against their own team and say, well, somebody said, it's called into the show and said, I'm a Democrat, but I don't understand the trans stuff. Like, I don't get why a trans person can go into my daughter's locker room at school. And one of the things that one of our panelists said in response to that was, this is why we have to have these awkward conversations because most people don't know any trans people. Most people in this country do not know a single trans person by far, most people. And the only way that we are going to actually have any progress on that issue is for people to have a conversation with one another and actually talk these things out and not just be like, you are a bigot for even suggesting that. So, and because then what does that person do? They're like, well, then, can I say, fuck you? Like,
no, I know.
Right.
No, I mean, I love where the origins of the middle are, but what I told you is like, I was raised in a political, my dad was a mayor. I was raised after he retired from the fire department. And I mean, we were centrist. Like we voted Republican, we voted Democratic. My dad always used to say, vote the issues, vote the person, don't vote the party. Like we were not. In fact, he taught us when I remember the first time he was taking us to vote, like you don't vote straight ticket. Like, I want you to study the issues. I want you to study the candidates. Like we were very educated voters, like, and participative democracy and everything like that. And And I've, in my lifetime, even as an out gay man, have voted for Republicans because if I thought they were the right person for that particular role, of course I was going to vote for them. I wasn't going to not vote for them because they were Republican. I literally, and if they were stronger than the Democratic candidate, I was going to go for the best candidate. But I feel like we've lost all ability to have those kind of discussions. Like I feel like we're so polarized, to your point, and it's like I have to be Democratic because I can't stomach, what's going on the other side. I just can't,
Well, and I think that the issue of our democracy is a real one. And again, just going back to the idea that the Trump phenomenon has only existed since 2015. Mm-hmm. Our country has only been around for 250 years. It's not that long. That's not that long. Yeah. And it does take actual work by all of us to make sure that it continues to survive as a free country. But we'll see. I mean, the one thing that has been said about January 6th by some Republicans, even some Republicans who were very angry at it when it was happening in the beginning and have sort of like backed off of that criticism since then, is the system did hold. It did confirm Biden that very night.
Yes.
And so as traumatic and awful as that was to watch, the system did hold up at the end of the day. Now, a lot has changed since then. A lot of different people have been put in power in different places since then. But I do think, like, at the core, we and everyone listening to this, if they're in the United States, are living in the most powerful still country in the world. And I think have a responsibility to pay attention to what is going on in the world, not just in our own country, but in other places too, because we can impact those places. And we're the ones who get to vote and decide which direction we're going to go in. And so the idea that people say, you know what, screw this. I don't want to pay any more attention. I'm not going to follow the news anymore. I'm not going to pay any attention because it's just too annoying and I just don't want to hear about it anymore. I think that that's a shirking of our responsibility as people that have been given an enormous privilege.
It's privilege. No, I agree with you. I mean, it's I always say that it's a privilege, not a right, right? And I think we do live in a democracy, and we want to live in a participative democracy and a representative democracy, all of those words. And I agree with you. So as painful as it is, I think we have to keep going. And I think we need platforms and shows like you. We need more. We need more of you. We need more people like you who are reporting the facts. Because that's the other thing I want to get back to is just fact-based discussions and fact-based news and fact-based decision-making. Because even myself, like I don't overreact to my newsfeed now. Like I see a headline come through and I'm like, okay, I don't love the headline, but I'm going to wait because
it might not be real.
It might not be real. And I don't really think that's the full story. Like I know everything always has more stories. And so it may spark me to go down a rabbit hole and want to learn more. And I feel like I have shows like there's places I go because there's people that I'm like, okay, I'm gonna see what they say about this, right? Like I'm gonna see. It's funny, like one of your former NPR, Audie Cornish, like she's someone I really like. Caitlin Collins in CNN is someone I really like. Abby Phillips in CNN I really like. I don't always agree with everything they do or say, but I'm like, okay, that feels like it's like a trusted source to me is really important because I don't have all the answers. I don't know. Like
I will say this. I think Abby Phillips is amazing. Very, very smart. I think her show has too many guests on it now at night and they just scream at each other. And I'm like, come on, like just have two people or three people. Like you don't need five and you don't need to have as many bomb throwers as you do because I know it probably makes more interesting television, but
I know.
I don't think she's winning in the ratings right now anyway. So I would say like just, I would rather have more of a discussion, but I agree with you. She's extremely good. Audie's very smart. I worked with Audie back at WBUR in Boston in college. We were both writing the news together.
Who are your go-tos? Like besides yourself, like who Like, who do you listen to or watch?
Yeah, I mean, I do like watch a fair bit of CNN when I want to watch TV.
Mm-hmm.
I I read a lot of the news. The Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal, and the New York Times are sort of like I'm checking those pretty regularly. Who are the journalists that I like to watch on TV and want to know? You know, I used to love watching Chris Matthews back when he had Hardball, because I just think he knows his political history, which I think is really important. I've never met Rachel Maddow, but I think she's an incredible broadcaster. By the way, I thought Rush Limbaugh was an incredible broadcaster too.
Yeah.
I mean, a little crazy sometimes, but like he was an incredible broadcaster.
Yeah.
I love watching Bill Maher's show. I think it challenges you. Sometimes he says things that I really don't like when he talked about flying private planes. I'm like, dude, you don't have to fly private planes. Just get in your business class. I'm sure you're going to be in a very nice seat on your way to Vegas, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
No, I think, yeah. No, that list, that's an interesting list. Rachel is interesting. I mean, I find myself, I'm a little bit of that adult ADD, I think, because I find myself flipping a lot. You know, I find myself, and I do, like my Apple News feed and like my news sources and stuff, I do like it because I do like the summary. I do like scanning and then deciding where I want to go deeper. I do think there's a lot of tools. There's a lot of stuff on there I don't need. And I'm learning how to be a better editor about that and how to use the tools differently. But I do like that it's kind of in my hand, you know?
Yeah. I also, you know, I used to like watching Chris Wallace on Fox News Sunday. I do like watching George Stephanopoulos on ABC.
Yeah. Were you a 60 Minutes person?
I loved 60 Minutes. I read a book about 60 Minutes, and
we grew up in 60 Minutes, so
yeah, they do a great job.
Yeah, because I like those formats where they can go longer than like 90 seconds, right?
Totally.
Because it's like, well, wait a minute, there's a lot of story here and you're kind of just skimming it. And I like where they can go deeper. Okay, so I have to wrap up because I'm watching our time because I have to be kind to our listeners and ourselves. But as we head into 2026, because I think it's going to be a really interesting year with midterm elections and everything going on in the world, like, what are you going to be telling your listeners? Like, what do you want them to do in 2026? Like, what piece of wisdom or insight do you have that you want to share?
Oh, I mean, I think I want them to be engaged and to continue to, you know, listen to their fellow Americans and talk to their fellow Americans and not give up on the United States. I haven't given up on it yet. You know, some people have. I have not given up on it yet. And I think it's going to be an interesting year. I mean, I think that these sort of early elections are showing probably a pretty big backlash, as we've seen in the past when there's a big, you know, big win by one side. When you get to the midterms, it tends to go the other direction.
I know, it's interesting. We're doing this. We're doing it as a day. I'm kind of giving away what day we're doing, but there's an election today, a special election today. Tennessee today that looks like it's going to be closer than it really should have been, right? For all the reasons you've talked about. Well, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for doing what you do. Like you do make a difference. I know you know that from the call-ins and stuff, but I mean, when Brian, and thank you, Brian Sims, by the way, when Brian said, "Oh, you should meet Jerry Hobson," I'm like, "What? The Jeremy Hobson?" Like, of course, Brian Sims knows everybody, but
yes.
But I mean, and then the fact that you would do this, but I mean.
Well, and Brian and I did AIDS Life Cycle together.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, I was on Brian's team, and he was amazing as a team captain. He and his husband, Alex.
I'm so impressed you did that. By the way, I forgot we didn't even talk about that. It's
you know
so
what?
Impressive.
That was in 2025 with all that we've been talking about in the middle. That was the thing I was most proud of doing. I wanted to ride every mile. It was like 560 something miles.
And you did San Francisco to LA.
And I wanted to not get injured on that trip.
Which Brian didn't do, but okay. Well, that's a different story, but yes.
But that was incredible. And I think like somebody said when we were doing that, like, you know, we were talking amongst our team, like, why are you doing this? And it was like, well, number one, it's an amazing cause and I'm glad to be a part of that. Number two, I love the state of California. It's so beautiful. And I love being able to see it in that way. And number 3, I do love America. And I think this is like an incredible way to experience all these different parts of America, from the, strawberry pickers that you pass through in the farms in Northern California, to the vineyards, to the, factories, to all these towns like Salinas and, San Luis Obispo that you probably wouldn't go to otherwise, but then you're there and you're like, oh, this is so interesting. So it was a really an amazing journey to do that.
That's such an accomplishment.
Yeah, it was really cool. Thank you.
Huge. Oh my God. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
I mean, listeners, you got a lot out of this. So listen to this a couple times, because there's a lot of gold in here, and we'll keep in touch. I'm going to be listening every week.
Thank you.
Because I need you. I need you for 2026. Keep me educated and motivated, and hold me accountable. I like that. Hold me accountable.
Well, and if I can finally think of the 5 people I would want at my dinner party, I will.
No, you
I will
did
get
good
back
on
in
that.
touch and
You
let
did
you know.
good on that. You did good. I'll come. I'll serve.
Okay, perfect.
I'll serve. I don't have to be at the table, but I want to be listening. I'll serve. All right. Thanks so much,
Thank you.
Jeremy. Thanks for spending this time with us on Ask for an Answer. If this conversation sparks something for you, don't just nod and move on. Take one idea, one question, one uncomfortable and bring it into your next meeting, your next one-on-one, or your next big decision. That's how this becomes a practice, not just a podcast. If you're leading a team, a classroom, a company, or just your own next chapter, you don't have to have it all figured out. You do have to be willing to listen, to ask better questions, and to create the kind of safety where people will actually tell you what they see. If this episode was useful, share it with someone who's in the arena with you. And if you want more tools, stories, and real talk leadership moments, make sure you follow the show and leave a review so others can find us. I'm Jim Fielding. Thank you for being here, for leading with less armor and more intention. Until next time, stay curious, stay kind, and keep asking for an answer.